Hi, I'm Charlie Lyons with OnlineReputationTraining.com, and in this video we're going to share some of the best on-camera positions to capture patient video testimonials for your medical practice. Let's go ahead and get started. If you take a look at this first diagram here, you can see the patient is positioned slightly off-center on the left side of the screen in this diagram. Now, whether you have an SD camera or you're shooting with an HD camera, which most people today have high definition cameras, and in this example we're using an HD camera, but you can use the tips I'm sharing with you here with either one, either an SD or an HD camera. So you can see it's kind of a letterbox look. It's the wider screen. If you can imagine when you're looking through your camcorder and you have a similar look to what you see here in the diagram, what you want to do is you want to take what you're looking at through the lens and you want to take and split your screen into three equal parts using a line, an imaginary line that you see on the left here like this one, and then one on the right, and then you want to have your patient aligned right in the middle of either the left line or the right line. And this makes for a really attractive video testimonial. It allows you to put something on either the left side or the right side, or capture something in the video like a medical chart, certification, degrees, anything like that, anything you want to showcase on the right or the left side of the patient. In this case, we're showcasing something that's relative to a chiropractic office, but again, if it's a dental office or a plastic surgery office and you want to showcase anything, it allows you to do that. And it immediately tells whoever's watching what the testimonial is about. There's no guesswork. It's not just a testimonial of a person, and you have no idea what kind of testimonial for what kind of a medical practice it might be. So these are the things that you want to consider. And again, on the next screen, you can see here we've got the patient positioned on the right side of the screen, and whatever we showcase in the same way is on the left side of the screen. So again, imagine you're looking through your video camera and you're splitting the screen into three equal parts using two imaginary lines. You want to position the patient right over the middle of either the right imaginary line that I've got here in red or the left imaginary line. Now, some of the biggest mistakes people make when they're shooting video, and this is for you or your staff, whoever's going to be capturing the videos, is this is one of the biggest ones right here. As you can see, it's putting the patient right smack in the middle. Videos, thousands upon thousands of videos have been shot like this, and it just makes for a really boring video, and it doesn't really allow you to showcase anything on the left or on the right. There's nothing really creative about this. So stay away from this big mistake. The videos don't look very attractive when they're shot in the middle like this. One of the next things people do is they zoom out too much, and it just looks like the patient is barely sticking their head up in the bottom of the video, and it looks like there's way too much room overhead, and it looks like they're really far away. So this is another big mistake that you want to stay away from. You want to be able to zoom in so you get a good portion of their head and shoulders over the left side or the right side, as we mentioned. Here's another mistake, is taking the advice that we talk about positioning somebody on the left or the right and exaggerating that and not capturing enough of their head and shoulders. So this looks like they're still too far away. You're zoomed out way too much, and there's just a ton of space overhead because you're zoomed out too much, and it's too far over to the left. So it's nowhere near being in the middle of the imaginary line that we talked about here. So here's another mistake, is zooming in too much. Now this wouldn't be too bad, by cutting out all the shoulders and really going straight in for the face, as you can see here. But again, it's still too far over on the left. It should be, the screen should be either moved over so this line aligns right in the middle with the patient's face and head, or you can have the patient move over. It's easier to move the camera, obviously, than it is to have the patient move. You want to make sure once they sit down, you capture them the way you want to capture them, which is why we're covering this. So here's a situation where you're still far over on the right and you're still not centered with that imaginary line. So this covers a good portion of the head and shoulders. It's ideally the right amount of zoom right here. You could have the person's head come up just a little more if you wanted to in the picture, but again, it's too far over to the right. So ideally, you want this to be moved over slightly, as you see here, where the patient is aligned perfectly right down the middle, with a few inches overhead and enough space on the left side or the right side, like you see here, where you can showcase something to do with the medical practice. So I hope that's helpful. What we're going to do right now is cover some additional tips that are going to help you capture really great video. These are 7 simple steps to creating really outstanding patient video testimonials. First thing you want to do is ask the patient, either you or your staff is trained to ask the patient to provide a video testimonial. Ask the patient to give you just a minute to prep the room. Now, if you've got a room in your medical office that's already set up for this, and you've got a tripod set up and you've got the camera set up, so you can continue to ask for video testimonials as you build your practice. And we recommend this to all of our clients as part of the building a 5-star reputation online, is just make it a new habit and a new way of doing business. Just like our clients will garner reviews to have their patients leave reviews on all the different review sites such as Google and Yelp and Bing and Insider Pages and all the different sites where people can leave a review, a 5-star review, hopefully. You want to continue to get video testimonials, because once you have got a huge vault of video testimonials, you can pretty much guarantee your competition is going to be left in the dust if you take this advice and do it. So if you've got a room set up, ask the patient just to give you a minute, go to that room that you have in your medical practice, whether it's an extra patient room or some area in the practice where it's going to be quiet enough where you can set up a tripod and you can consistently record videos. If you don't have that kind of space, then you'll have to get creative and you'll just have to learn how to set things up pretty quickly. But you want to ask them to wait outside or wait wherever they're at. If they're in an examination room or if they're in the reception, ask them just to wait there patiently for just a minute while you get everything set up, and you'll come back and get them. Go into that camera room, turn the video camera on, and actually press the record button after you turn it on as if you are recording. I know nobody's in the room yet, but you'll understand why in a second. So again, turn the camera on, press record, and then head back out to wherever you left the patient, either in the reception area or in that examination room, and escort the patient into the room, make them comfortable, invite them to sit down, and let them know whenever they're ready to start, talking, and do a couple of practice runs just so they can get comfortable with what they're going to say. Now, if you've watched our other training videos, then you know that there's a very specific way to help a patient express what they want to express in the form of an effective testimony. We don't want to tell people what to say, but we want to let them know what's effective and what's not. And if you watch our other trainings on that, you'll understand what you can share with your patient to best equip them to give you the very best type of patient testimonial that's actually effective in helping other people who are looking for your type of medical practice. So again, the practice runs that you're going to invite them to start giving before anything happens are likely going to be the best recordings. They have no idea the camera's been running, and usually they're most comfortable when they come in the room and they sit down and your staff or you have engaged in a conversation, and you say, go ahead and just tell us what your thoughts are, and they've kind of been prepped based on what we've covered in other videos on how to share that with them. They'll start talking while the camera is already running, and it's going to be recording those test runs. It's best not to mention to them that the camera is already on. The reason being is you want them to be as natural as possible, and invariably when people see that red light that comes on in front of the camera, they get this kind of nervous feeling that they're on stage and now they've got to perform, and so they're not as natural or conversational in just sharing their experience with your medical practice as you'd like them to be. And nobody wants to capture a video testimonial from somebody who isn't just really speaking naturally. Nobody's looking for anything staged. You do want to capture very natural, very kind of organic conversation. And the best way to do that, in our experience, is what we're describing right now. Just have the camera rolling before you invite them into the room. And the other thing that you can do to make sure they don't experience that nervousness is if you've got any electric tape in the office, if you don't have any, obviously run down to the hardware store and pick up a little roll of black electric tape and cut out a square of that black electric tape, just big enough to put over the red light that usually comes on most video cameras, on the front of the camera. This is the red light that's on the front of the camera that the patient would likely see when you hit the record button. So when you come into the room by yourself, before the patient comes in, you'll hit the record button. If you've got that black tape over the red light in the front, when the patient comes back in the room with you, they're not going to see that red light on. Now, we don't do this to deceive anybody or anything like that. If you're not comfortable doing this, then don't do it. We're doing this because when that light comes on, that's a signal to a lot of people to all of a sudden get nervous, and their voice changes, their intonation changes, they're not as natural. And in order to capture the best possible video testimonial, you want people just to feel comfortable and be natural. And you can let them know after those first couple of test runs to start talking whenever they're ready that they did great, and they'll start talking, and that way you've got 1 or 2 or 3 takes. And like I said, usually the better ones are the first test runs because they didn't think the camera was on, and we managed to capture that. Also, I might want to mention here, if you don't already have something in the form of a release form, you don't absolutely need this. Should you have a patient contact you in the future and say, hey, I don't want my video up, can you please take it down? Whether you had a release form or not, it's just good business to take them down if they don't really want them up. That rarely happens. But you want to have a release form if you can help it. And if you don't have a release form, you can make one up. It's really simple. It just says that it's okay for you to use their testimony in their video and have them sign off on it. Have your staff present them with that, and you can put that in your files. And again, it's not mandatory that you have that. If you don't have one, you don't need one. It's not a big deal. Okay. So make sure you cover that red light with the black electric tape, and that's going to make a big difference. The next step is make sure that whatever room you're in, if you do have an extra room to shoot the video testimonials in, great. If you don't, and you're going to be in one of the common areas and you've got to kind of work around this, then you'll have to figure it out. But if you do have a spare room or anything in the medical office that you can use, make sure when you sit the patients down that you're not shooting the video where they've got either blinds behind them, an open window where bright sunlight is penetrating from behind them. You won't be able to see the patient in the video. They're going to come out really dark because the light that's coming in from the window is going to drown them out, and it's going to affect the camera from capturing really good video. So make sure you're in a well-lit room. If you've got the fluorescent lights overhead, just make sure you've got enough lighting in the room that's good lighting. Do a couple of test videos with the staff before you start doing these regularly, because you don't want to practice on people. If people are willing to give you a testimonial, you don't want to find out after they sit down that you haven't got the camera down, you haven't figured things out, you're testing stuff. Nobody wants to feel like a guinea pig. They're there to provide you with a quick 1 or 2 minute testimonial, and you really ought to be prepared for that. That's just good business, and it's respectful for their time for sitting down and providing that testimonial. So make sure the lighting is good. Make sure if you've got blinds, if the only place in the office you can shoot has either vertical blinds or mini blinds, make sure that when they close, they don't allow any light to penetrate and hit the camera from any angle that would affect the quality of the video. And if you can at all help it, don't shoot with a window or mini blinds or vertical blinds behind you, because you really want to have something, as I mentioned in the first few slides, that are going to kind of dress up the video with either a medical chart or a diagram or something that's relative to the medical practice that you're running. In addition to that, if you do happen to shoot with a window behind the patient, you always want to make sure that the blinds are closed, because you want to prevent any distractions from taking place behind the patient. If the blinds are open, or if they're cracked open slightly, and you can see bodies or people walking outside, that can be a distraction from what's coming out of the patient's mouth. If they're providing valuable feedback about the medical office and the doctor and their experience, you want people watching that video to be paying attention to that wonderful testimony and not somebody playing frisbee with a dog in the window outside or anything like that. So that's definitely something you want to consider. Our last tip, tip number 7, is this is a really important thing to consider, and this is one of the bigger mistakes people make, is they're really excited that somebody is ready to provide a video testimonial. So you want to really make them as comfortable as possible. And I can't tell you how many times staff do this, doctors do this. They wheel up one of those big, beautiful leather office chairs that has a high back and it reclines. So I'm going to recommend that you use a stool, either a short stool or a tall stool, one with no wheels on it. Some of these medical offices, and if you have these in your medical office, you know what I'm talking about. The stool has wheels on it. Remember, patients get slightly nervous when they're being recorded on video, and it's natural for them to move or have nervous movement. So if they're on a stool with wheels on it, they might start to swivel clockwise and counterclockwise, or forward and backwards slightly, just a couple of inches on the stool, If they're sitting in a chair, like I mentioned, one of these office chairs that reclines, they may start rocking or reclining, and that is very distracting when you're capturing video. Could you capture video like that? Of course. It just doesn't make for a really good video testimonial. So I highly recommend you come up with, use a solid chair that does not budge or a solid stool that doesn't move at all, and that's going to help you capture the most professional looking, most engaging, and most effective patient video testimonials. I hope this training was helpful, and we look forward to having you join us in more of our trainings. Thanks for watching, and for more training, go ahead and visit us online at onlinereputationtraining.com. Once again, I'm Charlie Lyons, and thanks for joining us.